First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to this panel. My presentation will consist of 4 parts. I will argue that Poland should join the Eurozone, provided that she will manage to contain the risk of a boom-bust cycle. And I will argue that a feasible solution exists. Let me start, however, with some remarks on the integration of Poland with Euro area and benefits she has reaped so far from that integration. Poland has built strong trade linkages with the Euro area. Her foreign trade is even more focused on Euro area than trade of average Euro area member, thus or than trade of Spain, which due to her size can be regarded as a suitable benchmark for Poland. Trade linkages have been supported by massive inflow of FDI. The stock is again larger relative to GDP than in Spain, and almost 90% of the stock originates from the Euro area. The linkages between Poland and the Euro area are also strong in the financial sector. About half of banks' assets are controlled by investors from the Eurozone. These links has helped Poland to converge, to catch up fast. The gap in per capita income between Poland and the Eurozone has narrowed by almost 20 percentage points, and now is the lowest since the 16th century. Interestingly, that gap has been also narrowed by the worst performance among the new member states, that is to say by Hungary and Slovenia, which have pursued, let's say, controversial policies. The growth of Polish economy has been largely driven by development of tradable sectors that have gone through significant technological change. The share in export of goods requiring medium to high technology to be manufactured has almost doubled since 1995 and now exceeds 60%. Due to expanding foreign trade, Poland has avoided the deindustrialization that most Euro area economies have suffered from. The share in output of manufacturing in Poland is now larger than in Germany. If Poland benefited from adopting the euro, the benefits would primarily result from the deepening of integration with Euro area. By contrast, I will argue that the decline in cost of capital, which was considered to be another important benefit from Euro adoption in most benefit analysis carried out in the NBP in 2004 and 2009, represents a source of most important threat, namely a credit boom bust cycle. The first mentioned analysis did not even mention this threat, like most similar analysis carried out in other new member states. The second one recognized the problem, but concluded that the threat is limited. This assessment was based, at least partly, on early examination of resilience of banking sector in Euro area periphery to bust. Financial crisis has later turned out to be very costly for Europe. Fall in GDP relative to either pre-crisis trend or pre-crisis forecasts in some countries has been larger than in Thailand during the Asian crisis. In most crises, in most EU countries, it has been larger than in Korea during Asian crisis, and in almost all EU countries, it has been larger than in Sweden at the beginning of the 1990s. The slump was the deepest where the previous boom had been the strongest, that is to say, in the new member states. Robust economic growth gave rise to optimism, which was enhanced by the EU accession, and increased capital inflows. Large capital inflows channeled through banks fueled credit boom, which accelerated GDP growth even further. Some new member states, namely the Baltics, developed as fast or even faster than China did. Very fast convergence was taken for granted. However, initially healthy growth turned out into unsustainable boom. Soaring house prices due to rapidly growing mortgage loans boosted profitability of construction, which is labor intensive. As a result, wage pressure increased and eroded cost competitiveness of tradable sectors. Activity moved further towards non-tradables, in particular in construction. The subsequent slump was closely related to credit growth, which in turn was the strongest in economies with currencies pegged to euro and thus without sovereign interest rate policy. During boom, cost of credit in these countries was too low, and the boom wasn't inhibited by currency appreciation in nominal terms. In turn, subsequent bust was not dampened by currency weakening. Experience of these countries show that adopting the euro is risky for an economy which grows faster than euro area. The risk is associated with a credit boom bust cycle, which euro adoption would result in unless domestic fiscal or macroprudential measures are tightened adequately. Such a cycle could be particularly costly after euro adoption for two additional reasons. Its cost depends not only on size of initial imbalances, but also on flexibility of economy to reallocate production factors and on policies after the slump, which may either accelerate restructuring or inhibit it. As adopting the euro softens government budget constraint, government willingness to introduce reforms which would facilitate reallocation of capital and labor disappears. It's easy to cover and to hide costs of various vested interests. It's not by coincidence that all boom-bust countries from New Europe has quite fast recovered, and cumulated growth of the per capita income after the crisis outburst in spite of initial slump outpaced growth of all old members except for Germany. There was no boom, and Sweden, which is outside the euro area. By contrast, boom-bust countries from euro area have started to recover only very recently. The boom-bust countries from the new Europe managed, Estonia is a good example here, or were forced, I think that Latvia is a good example in that case, to rebalance quickly, while boom-bust countries from euro area delayed necessary adjustment. They started to restructure only after exhaustion of the whole fiscal space and under the pressure of fiscal crisis. This being said, I will argue that the risk of boom-bust cycle should not be automatically considered to be an argument against adopting the euro by a country growing faster than the euro area. First, sovereign interest rate policy is not enough to avoid a boom-bust cycle. After all, such a cycle occurred in the United States, which is the country with the most sovereign interest rate policy. with central bank hiring the most competent staff. Second, the risk can be mitigated even without sovereign interest rate policy. It suffices to increase a price of credit or constrain its volume through appropriate fiscal or macroprudential measures. The problem is that although theoretical solutions are broadly available, their feasibility is questionable primarily due to political pressures. I do not see a party in Poland which would be ready to say to the electorate that the windfall gains from adopting the euro should be saved instead of being immediately spent. The feasibility problem, however, could be resolved by delegating large power of undertaking macroprudential measures to National Bank of Poland. It is independent and it has a necessary systemic macroeconomic perspective as well. By the way, euro adoption would overcome the problem of difficult cohabitation of monetary and macroprudential policies. When national central bank is primarily responsible for price stability, it has natural temptation to subordinate macroprudential actions to monetary policy. Inflation is observable and systemic risk is not. Besides, business cycle is much shorter than credit cycle, and as a result, the risk of inflation to deviate from the target increases much more frequently than the risk of financial crisis. Still worse, once credit starts fuel bubble, inflation usually is subdued. For Poland, introducing a solution which would effectively mitigate the risk of credit boom bust cycle is of crucial importance, not only because Poland grows faster than Eurozone. She has also some other characteristics which make her especially vulnerable. For example, underdeveloped private rental market in Poland raises responsiveness of house prices and residential investment to financial conditions. Fiscal restraint, unfortunately, is not a feasible solution for Poland. Due to debt ceilings, Poland has managed to keep debt below 60% of GDP, but deficit has always exceeded 3% of GDP, except for 1 year. By contrast, experience with macroprudential measures is quite encouraging. Already before the outburst of the crisis, Poland started to introduce some measures to curb the growth of FX loans, which were very popular at that time. However, less strong credit boom in Poland than in other new member states appears to be related more to the sharp monetary tightening in 2004, which contributed to the interruption of EU post-accession boom. This tightening and more generally the success of the National Bank of Poland in stabilizing the economy suggests it could make a good use of the power to undertake macroprudential measures. You can see from this slide that output gap volatility, inflation volatility, and also variability of nominal interest rates were among the lowest in the world, or among those central bankers which pursue strategy of inflation targeting. Economic turmoils cannot and should not be avoided at all costs. Poland should better prepare for its occurrence before joining the euro area. To accelerate restructuring and to reduce its cost, labor and capital reallocation must be improved, although it is already quite quick by European standards. Both entry rate and exit rate are larger than in main euro area economies. Flows into and out of the unemployment are among the largest in the EU. These flows are facilitated by weaker employment protection and occur despite strong wage flexibility in Poland. On the other hand, the flexibility of Polish economy is much lower than among the OECD top performers, in particular as far as product market is concerned. Poland would benefit the most in terms of growth if she deregulated her product market in line with OECD best practice. Thus, Poland should enhance flexibility of her economy, irrespective of when she joins the euro area. There are also many other challenges for euro adoption in Poland. Euro became very unpopular in Poland. This stays in stark contrast with pre-EU accession period when the public support for adopting the euro was even larger than for the EU accession. However, euro was considered then to be close substitute for Deutschmark, whereas now it is regarded to be much closer to Greek drachma. Euro area has many weaknesses, has many internal problems which has to be resolved. It has a huge public debt. This public debt is clearly above safe or neutral for growth threshold. There are many other problems. I will quickly wrap up. Some links between Poland and euro area are even stronger than among euro area members. Potential benefits for Poland from adopting the euro are related to the deepening of the integration, whereas the main risk is associated with credit boom-bust cycle, falling cost of capital. Theoretical solutions to mitigate the above risk are broadly available. However, the feasibility is questionable. Feasibility problem might be overcome through delegating the power of undertaking macroprudential measures to the National Bank of Poland. Adopting the euro would resolve the problem of difficult cohabitation of monetary and macroprudential policy.